Hey guys, I've been playing around with the Demko AD 20.5 quite a bit these days, and I was asking myself the question, why does this knife not work as well? And I came up with 6 different reasons why the AD 20.5 does not work. So you see, when the AD 20 came around, it was a super iconic knife immediately. It came with a new locking system that was both fun and very secure. It came from a designer that we really liked, and that just left Cold Steel because Cold Steel was being sold. And it also had a good timing because there was this other thing going on where everybody was at home ordering knives online and having a bad time at the same time. I personally had a great time back then. I was playing a lot of Warzone with my friends. But what I'm trying to say is this knife had a really good timing and was immediately a super iconic knife because it had no competition in its class other than from other Demko designs themselves. So the AD 20.5, on the other hand, had quite a bit of competition. I mean, I can name a million different Spydercos that are in the same size range that are just much better at what they do. Why is that? So you see, in knife designing we have a thing occurring often, and that is called scaling down. So the AD 20.5 is basically just a scaled down version of the AD 20. And especially in a knife that uses a lot of finger choils, that often does not work as well. Andrew Demko is a really good designer when it comes to finger choils. I mean, especially the choils on the Recon, those will fit almost every hand size, which is very unique and very difficult to do. But the AD 20.5 is much smaller, and therefore your hand is locked in here quite more. So this is not comfortable. You don't have a lot of space to move around. You can choke up, but then you already touch the cutting edge. That, by the way, is really short, and in proportion to the overall size and handle size, especially, it's not visually appealing. So I made some drawings right here so you can see it a little bit better. Very arrogant of me, I'm totally aware of that, but I just wanted to showcase it better. Up here we have the AD 20.5 original design, and if you get rid of those choils and open up this back section, you get an entire centimeter more grip length. And if you play around with the front side a little bit as well, you also get an entire centimeter of more cutting edge with the same overall dimensions. So scaling down is the second reason the AD 20 did not work. And we already can see that in the follow-up designs that came around. The Shark Cup is basically a simplified version of the AD 20.5. And then we had the Nano Shark, which is even smaller. And now we have the AD 22. So that means that this design did not work as well as, we would have liked it to. The third reason is the small little details. The AD 20 uses its liners only around the locking system, so the rest of the knife is, for the size and for the thickness, very, very lightweight. And here we have liners all around the G10, which is not, this knife is not heavy, but it's also heavier than it needs to be. So I think if they would have only used the liners around the locking system, this knife would have been a lot more competitive in the market, especially in the day and age of ultra lightweight knives, right? Because this is strong and lightweight at the same time then. Small little details, this uses T8, these are only T6s. The spring tension is super soft, so on these Taiwanese Demkos, the spring tension is just not as dialed in as on these. The spring tension here is much better. Excuse me, it's just a harder, nicer spring tension that is more refined, in my opinion. The next reason, the fourth reason, is that hard use sheep's foot designs also don't work as well. So you see, the sheep's foot blade shape is a shape that works really well in like slicing knives. So you can see this Boca Plus Senshin has the same cutting edge length, but it cuts much better and does so at a much slimmer, thinner overall design. And here the cutting edge is actually for slicing, whereas here it's actually for hard use. And hard use in a sheep's foot blade is really bad because you cannot stab into material to lift it up. So if you have a stronger tip, of course you want to do some prying with it and some harder use, but you also need a tip to stab into the material. And because the tip is so low, you cannot get in there really well. So all the thickness, the material thickness is back here where you don't actually need it. You would need it around the tip. And that's also true for other hard use sheepsfoot blade shapes. So for a prying knife, you actually need a nice tip where you can get into things and then lift them. So I think a clip point, draw point, a more traditional shape is much better for this style of knife. So the sheepsfoot, in my opinion, works great in slicing, but not in hard use. And also you can see that's actually the next reason, the fifth reason, the width. Modern folding knives are very, very wide. They are much wider than they need to be. Just think about that. Why does this knife need to be that wide? I cannot make use of the strength up here, and the geometry down here is too thick for actual fine slicing. And you can see that in other knives as well, right? So take away everything you don't really need on that blade and you will be ending up with this. So modern knives are way wider than they need to be. And there is a good reason why the most successful folding knife designs in human history are all very slim and narrow. Think about the best cutting blade shapes in your household. These are oftentimes traditional knives, right? The traditional spear point, the Laguiole knife, the Buck 110. I mean, these are just fantastic blade shapes for cutting because they use a narrow blade that's very thin. In modern folding knife that also exists, think about as a Benzer, for instance, or a Benchmade 940, very successful knife, and it is also very narrow, or the Ontario Rat. These knives are also quite a big competition to this one because they can do the same things just much better. The Rat, for instance, uses a thin blade stock. I would still call this knife a hard use knife. I can use this for the same things. I can use this sometimes even a little bit better because it cuts better. So if you want to have a wide profile, you also have to make use of that width to get the cutting edge thin and make the geometry a lot thinner, as in this Spyderco Tenacious right here. And this is plenty of hard use on the spine still. So I would argue this is a much more practical blade shape, and the overall length is the same, but I get a ton more cutting edge here. So this is also a reason, the width of the knife, it just does not need to be this wide. I made another drawing for that, so you can actually see if you would take the same overall length but slimmen it down, this shape would cut a lot better, and here the sheepsfoot or shark's foot blade shape would unlock its full potential while keeping the overall profile nice and slim and possibly very, very lightweight at the same time. The sixth reason is price. The 80-20.5 was just always a little bit overpriced, over 250 bucks. Yeah, it's just not worth it. There is too much competition. For 100 bucks less, I can get a fantastic Spyderco with much better ergonomics and a longer cutting edge and a lighter weight. And yeah, here the wide blade actually makes sense because the geometry is there. So yeah, the 80-20 still a super iconic, really great knife. The 80-20.5 in my opinion just does not work.